Vishnu Sahasranam, name 731, Naika, which means he who is not one. The previous name was Eka, he who is one. This is a great mystery. It appears to defy all logic. Apparently there's an irresolvable contradiction here. But although I am, of course, a very small being, remembering the lotus feet of my most exalted spiritual master, His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, I shall attempt to unravel the mysteries herein and present this according to the understanding of reality as it is, as presented by the Vaishnava Acharyas. The name Eka followed by Naika might seem to be contradictory, but actually it serves to contradict the Kevaladvaita Vada, the doctrine of undifferentiated monism. And it's absolutely uncompromisable monism propagated by Shankara and his followers. It contradicts that immediately. And it upholds the Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva, the inconceivable oneness and manyness of the Supreme Personality of Godhead propagated by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his followers, and similarly the Vishishta-Advaita of Sri Ramanuja and his followers. Parashara Bhatta of the Ramanuja Sampradaya explains that he is one. You can't discount either name. That's the difficulty for our attempts to logically harmonize these two names. You can't discount one or the other. He is one, for sure, but he's not only one. He is the only one who's on the top of everything, but he's not the only one. He is one in the sense of being uniquely superior to all living beings and having all the universe as his possession, as being all-powerful. But he's not one only, inasmuch as there are other things which he is the overlord of. His vibhutis, everything, especially that which is something very glorious, can be seen as his vibhuti, but everything is within him and produced from him. In that sense, he is not different from everything, because nothing can exist without him. But at the same time, there is a difference between him and everything else. He is within everything. Ishvara sarva bhutanam hrideshe juna tishtati. He's within every living being. But at the same time, he's one. An example is given is that the sun is situated in one place, for the sake of this example, but may be reflected in innumerable bodies of water, and may seem to take somewhat different forms according to the water, according to if there are ripples on the water, or the sun may not be reflected so clearly. So it may appear that the one has many forms, and he does. There are innumerable reflections of the sun, but still they are reflections of the one sun. So many and one at the same time. Nantosti mama divyanam vibhuti nam parantapa. There is no end, Krishna tells Arjuna, to the divine glories of mind. Everything is a manifestation of Krishna's. Sri V.V. Ramanuja quotes from Namalva's Tirumalai, sorry to my Tamil friends for my almost certain mispronunciation. You are the fire, water, earth, ether and air. Everything is Krishna. To us, the devotees, you are the mother, father, children. You can see Krishna as a child also. All other relatives, all rolled into one. You are more, you are the whole universe. Yeah. So I see you everything, in everything, as everything, everywhere, but still, I like to see your own original, beautiful form. And then Namalva says, now you tell me what's the secret of all this, and don't give me any complex, high-level philosophy. This is devotee's heartfelt prayer. He is Atmatma. He is the soul of all souls. The Jivanam Sarva Bhuteshu. He's the life in all living beings. He is what makes everything possible. He, yes, he. That means he is one, but manifested as many. Shankaracharya explains this name in a way which will make the Vaishnavas wince. He who is not one only by attributing his many forms to Maya. In other words, ultimately there's undifferentiated monism, oneness, and the various forms of Vishnu and everything else is all Maya. Actually, everything in this world is Maya, but to say that the forms of Vishnu are also Maya, a product of material nature, that is called Mayavad. Ugh! That's not proper at all. That's a very great offense to Krishna. Avajananti ma mudha manushing tanamashritam param bhavam ajananto. Avajananti mangurha manushin tanamashritam param bhavam ajananto mama bhuta maheshwaram. Krishna refers to those who do not accept his transcendental form as being transcendental, who think that he's simply another human. Krishna refers to them as mudha, which means donkey-like fool. And we may say, well, these are big, learned scholars. Yeah, they're big, learned scholars, but they really got it all wrong. They really got it very, very wrong. In one sense, we can accept, yes, the forms of Krishna are also Maya, but then we have to understand the word differently. Maya doesn't only mean illusion. It can mean his internal energy. It can mean his mercy. And in this way, we can understand Krishna's statement, Ajopi san avyayatma bhutanam ishvaropi san prakriting svam adhishtaya sambhavami atma mayaya. Krishna says, although I am unborn and my transcendental form never deteriorates, and although I am the Lord of all living beings, I appear within this material nature by the agency of my own Maya. And here it should be understood that Krishna doesn't say that, he's already said that his form is avyaya. It doesn't deteriorate, and everything in material nature deteriorates. So here, Maya means he appears by his mercy, he appears by his internal potency. All these points have been very deeply analyzed and proved by Srila Jiva Goswami with reference to Bhagavatam, Gita, and especially in his Bhagavata Sandarbha, that the the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the topmost understanding of the topmost level of understanding the personality of Godhead. Sri Krishna Datta Bharadvaj gives another interpretation that he's not one because, this is very sweet, this is very good for Vaishnavas, should be recognized as two in the form of our father and mother, Lakshmi Narayana. And of course, that leads us right into the Gauriya conception that Radha and Krishna are one. We find just at the beginning of Chaitanya Charitamrita. Radha Krishna Pranaya Vikriti Hladini Shaktir Asmad Ekatmanavapi Bhuvi Pura Deha Bhedam Gatau Tau Chaitanyakyam Prakatam Adhuna Tadvayam Chaikyamaptam Radha Bhavadyuti Subalitam Naumi Krishna Swarupam. This is the mystery of Radha and Krishna and of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Radha and Krishna are two entities. They're the one supreme absolute truth. Sri Bhaktistan Saraswati Thakur refers to Krishna as the predominating moiety and Radha as the predominated. That's the ontological understanding of the one absolute truth. This is the topmost understanding, the personal understanding of yin and yang. Yin and yang, yeah, there's female energy everywhere, male energy everywhere. They all interact with each other. There's apparently some kind of conflict, but the whole thing is to harmonize it all. That harmony is in Radha and Krishna. They are one, but they separate for the sake of enjoying loving pastimes, and again they have joined as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is the very form of Krishna, but endowed with, enriched with the bodily luster and the feelings of Srimati Radharani. So this is theism at its topmost level. It's explained further in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Radha Purna Shakti, Krishna Purna Shaktiman, Duiboshtu Bednai Shastra Paraman. Sri Radha is the full power. Doesn't that make her supreme? Well, Lord Krishna is the possessor of full power. Lord Krishna is the supreme powerful. The two are not different, as is evidenced by the revealed scriptures. And Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami goes on to give an analogy to explain this. Actually, two analogies. Mrigamada targandha joyche obiched, agni jalate joyche kabu nahi ved. They are the same, Radha and Krishna are the same, just as musk and its scent are inseparable. Then musk and its scent are not exactly the same, but they're inseparable. In that way, they're the same. And fire and its heat are non-different. Radha Krishna oiche shada ekoi sharup lila rasha shadite dhare dui rup. In the same way, Radha and Krishna are one, yet they have taken two forms to enjoy the mellows of pastimes. Elsewhere in Chaitanya Charitamrita, we have a similar statement about the Pancha Tattva. Now, when we think of the Pancha Tattva, we usually think of Sri Krishna, Chaitanya, Prabhu, Nityananda, Sri Advaita, Gadadhar, and Srivas. But actually they are, when we say the Pancha Tattva, we're speaking specifically in philosophical terms or scientific descriptive terms. So what we're talking about is 5 different aspects of the absolute truth. That is the Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, appearing as a devotee, the Supreme Personality of Godhead as coming as an avatar, who's also a devotee. Another form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the prakash, the expansion into the jiva form. So in that sense, Shrivas, we say Shrivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. So Shrivas is the jiva category, which means we also are part of that absolute truth. We're all jivas. But listen to this. Pancha tatta ek boshtu nahi kichu bhed, rasha ashadite tabu bibida bibed. Spiritually, there are no differences between these 5 tattvas. For on the transcendental platform, everything and everyone is absolute. Krishna is Satchid Anandamaya Abhyasat. He is full of bliss, eternal, conscious, and so are the tiny jivas. So in that sense, they're all one. But there are also varieties, and in order to taste these spiritual varieties, one should distinguish between them. Now, the impersonalists insist that everything is only one, but one can only be understood if there is more than one. We can't understand one. The very concept of one implies that there is something else also. One cannot, the very concept of one cannot be understood without thinking of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 3.5, pi. So Baladeva Vidyabhushan, he says this name Naika, manifold, can be understood because his multiple forms are also real. Not as the Mayavadis say, he's one, but all the other forms, they're there, but they're not really there at all. The Supreme is dual and non-dual, both. Everything's included in the Supreme. If there's anything missing from the Supreme, then he's not complete and not the Supreme. Therefore, we find in Gita the maybe surprising statement. The Krishna says, Amritam chaiva mrityuscha sadasach chaham Arjuna. Arjuna, I am deathlessness, and I'm also death. You think, well, God's deathlessness. Okay, that's good, immortality. But he's also death. He's Sat, all right. Sat means everything good, eternal, truth, but he's also Asat. In the sense, the Asat means the opposite of that. Everything which is temporary, wrong, unreal, bad. But in one sense it all exists within Krishna. But just like as the shadow exists along with the object. There's sunlight, object, and shadow. So the shadow also exists. To fully define and know an object, one has to, if you're going to take everything into account, then the shadow is there also. So in one sense, yes, Krishna is everything. He expands everything, but especially means his Vishnu forms, in which he expands. Why? He likes to enjoy himself. Purusha Bodhini Upanishad. Eko Devo Nitya Lila Anurakto Bhakta Vyapi Hridyantaratma. The one Supreme Personality of Godhead is eternally engaged in many, many forms because he likes to perform pastimes with his devotees who have made him their heart, who have taken them into his heart. So it's a mistake to say that because he's one, that he's there is nothing else. It means he's one, he's incomparably excellent above all others, but that means there are others also, and they exist because of him. There's animate, inanimate, innumerable objects within the creation, but still his oneness, his uniqueness, his exquisite form, his exquisite personality. He owns everything. He's always unique. He is the only one who's worth putting in the center of our lives. But at the same time, there are other living beings also. He takes the form of Brahman, Shringa, Varaha, so many. But he is one who appears in various avatars. Let's quickly go through some of the many names or understandings given in the Madhva Sampradaya. He's called Aneka. Bahurupatvat Aneka. He's called Aneka, not one, because he has many forms. He's one, but by his extraordinary power, and he can take many forms and still remain one. Then again they quote the Nantusti Mavadevyanam Vibhuti Nang Parantapa, his vibhutis. There's no end to his vibhutis, his special opulences, what to speak of his, what we might say, ordinary manifestations. Arjuna addresses Krishna, Namapurastadata Prishtataste Namostu Te Sarvata Eva Sarva. Arjuna, seeing the universal form, he, in his astonishment, he starts to pray to Krishna. Namapurastadata Prishtataste Namostu Te Sarvata Eva Sarva. Ananta viryamita vikramastwang sarvang samapnoshi tatosi sarvaha. Obeisance to you from the front, from behind, from all sides. O unbounded power, you are the master of limitless might, you are all pervading, and thus you are everything. So, to the one person, Arjuna is addressing from various angles, seeing him everywhere and in everything. So if we see from different angles, we may see something looking quite different, although it's the same thing. We may see different aspects. In this regard, there is the well-known narration of the various blind men trying to understand what an elephant is. And it's a very docile elephant. So they were all able to grab different parts of his body. One grabbed the trunk and said, well, the trunk, well, he doesn't know it's the trunk. He thinks it's the whole elephant. And he thinks, well, the elephant's like a slender, something like a slender bamboo. And one grabs a hold of a leg and says, yeah, something like that, but not like a thin bamboo, more like a solid tree. And then someone grabs the tail and says, no, it's this, you got the shape right, but is actually very thin, more like a creeper. Someone gets a hold of the whole body and says, no, it's like a big stone or something like that. The elephant's like a big stone. Someone grabs or feels the ear and says, no, it's more like something like a lotus leaf or something like that. So they had very different impressions. The same entity which they're perceiving, but due to their limited perception, they could only understand different bits and pieces of him, and thus their impression is incomplete. Although it's the same entity, but according to their understanding, they had, according to their ability to understand, they understood differently. Now this brings us to the question of interfaith studies and trying to recognize God in different religions. This is something fairly recent, still not very widely established, but definitely if we go back to, say, the early part of the 20th century, Christian triumphalism was still rampant. I want to speak of prior to that, thinking that, well, there may be other people who have some idea of God, but the real God is the Christian God, and all other concepts of God are very much inferior, and they're not really concepts of God at all. Though actually, if one is to study impartially, and I would say I did that. I'm not as a great theologian, but in my teenage years, I was looking to see, well, okay, there's God. Who really knows him? Different people are talking about him. But then I found in this Hare Krishna movement such an explanation of God, so deep and knowledgeable, that I could understand. This is first class theology. And there are many other things also, many other aspects. The idea that God throws us into hell forever if we get it wrong in one lifetime, it just didn't seem to tally at all with the idea of a merciful God. The understanding of reincarnation, very important in my understanding. Anyway, I digress. I was looking for God and I found Krishna, who is even above and beyond the concept of God. If we take the concept of God as the supreme powerful, the supreme creator, the supreme judge, Krishna, yes, Krishna is all those things and more. He is the supreme lovable. People say God is love, but they find it easy, the idea of some amorphous, widely spread love. Jesus gave something, a very practical idea, to love thy neighbor as thyself. It's a lot easier to love everyone than to love your neighbor. To have a fuzzy, undefined, feel-good about everyone, but to actually love your neighbor with all his warts, that's much more difficult. But Krishna is not just some fuzzy love, specific love. We're talking about the name Naika. So Krishna appears as Rama, Nrsimha, Varaha, Kurma. He can be loved in various forms, but what I'm really speaking about is how different religionists see him differently. They see him differently according to their concept and maybe according to their desire also. He reveals himself differently to different people, but ultimately there is Eka, only one God, but perceived in different ways. Now, not everyone is going to agree with this. Generally, we may think that Hindus will agree with this, but there are an increasing number of Hindus who say that we don't accept that the God of Hinduism is the same as the God of the Bible, because the God of the Bible is a bloodthirsty, revengeful, nasty kind of God. So we don't accept that. Of course, their concept of the Hindu God is impersonal. They don't have a very clear concept. They don't really want to have a very clear concept. I've spoken to some of these people, and their real aim is more to be more anti-Christian than to promote any real understanding of God. Probably most Muslims will also disagree if we say that, well, God is revealed differently in different faiths. They may agree to some extent that the God of Christianity is the same as their Allah, and begrudgingly they might even accept that the God of the Bible, the Hebrew Bible, Judaism, the God of Judaism, is the same as Allah. But the Hindu idea of God, and I'm using the word Hindu tongue-in-cheek here because there's no such word as Hindu in the Vedic scriptures, they won't accept now. No. All the different sub-gods, so-called gods, they won't accept. They're saying there is no God but Allah. La illallah wa illallah. There's no God but Allah. By saying that, it suggests that at least there's a concept of other gods. Something's going on there. If you want to distinguish Allah and say He's the only God, it means at least there is a concept of other gods. I don't know what their theology is on this. Most people are not very deeply thoughtful. All religions are the same, a common saying. It's not exactly true, is it? There are deep differences, even in the very concept of God, as He relates to us in this world. For instance, some people, well, Christians, they interpret the idea that God gave man dominion over all the animals to mean that the animals are meant for us to eat and to kill them and eat them. But in a higher level religion, ahimsa, non-violence, or nati-himsa, no excessive violence, no unnecessary violence, is a basic principle of a human being. What to speak of spiritual realization, understanding that all living beings are creatures of God. They also have feelings. So to say that all religions are the same, in one sense, yes, all religions, ultimately they should be seeking the same supreme God, but they're very different in their manifestations, and they're different concepts, very different concepts of who that God is. Therefore, although God is one, that's the very meaning of God, He is not one also in the sense that He is conceived of differently. All the rivers flow to the sea, so all ultimately reach Keshava, Krishna. It may be true, but it can be a long, long time also. Not all water reaches the sea. A lot goes into the drains and gets recycled. Joto mot, toto pot. All paths lead to the same goal. And that's not true either. If I'm sitting in central India, Nagpur, then there are roads which go to Delhi, roads which go to Bombay, roads which go to Bangalore. It's not all the same. You take a different direction, you'll end up somewhere else. So we should know where we should get our route finder fixed on the proper destination. Otherwise we're going to go in the wrong place. We should know who God is. I was looking for God. Surprisingly, I ended up with Krishna. But the Christians will say, and I wasn't a Christian. People sometimes ask, how is it you were a Christian and you came to Hinduism? Well, I didn't consider myself a Christian. I was raised as a Christian, but I wasn't going to church. I didn't subscribe to the idea that God is some nasty mass murderer who throws people into hell by the millions with no chance of redemption, which is what I was taught about God when I was a kid at school. It really didn't make a very good impression on me. God's PR department's not doing very well. So surprisingly, it led to Krishna. I had no idea of Krishna, but Krishna had an idea of me. Thank you, Krishna. The Christians will mock, in their concept, God is one Jesus. Although Jesus never said that he's God, but someone did. St. Paul did. And they mock. How can Krishna be God? He's not moral. So God is one. Who is that God? Different people give ideas, different ideas. We come to the Krishna conception, or the reality of Krishna. But even in coming to Krishna, there are so many different ideas about Krishna, or so many different conceptions of Krishna. Our Krishna is not your Krishna. The Krishna that Srila Prabhupada presents is not the Krishna of some TV serial or some cartoon Krishna or some sentimentally approached Krishna. Although Krishna is worshipped and loved widely in India, the Krishna who Srila Prabhupada gave, the Krishna of Bhagavad Gita as it is not the same way that Krishna is widely understood. Another understanding of the one who is many is the common analogy that the king does not go alone. If we say, see, the king is going on the road, it doesn't mean the king is walking along alone with his hands in his pockets like some ordinary Joe. The king is going means he's going in a big chariot, and there'll be guards, and it may not be needed even the guards, but just wherever he goes, in public especially, it will be with a show of pomp. If he's going in his capital city from one place to another, he'll go with a whole retinue. So, I'll just read Srila Prabhupada speaking of this. Adi Purusham, this is Srila Prabhupada commenting on Sri Upanishad Mantra 1 in a talk he gave in Los Angeles in 1970. Srila Prabhupada says, Adi Purusham, the original personality of Godhead. So when we speak of Govinda, Govinda is not alone. Just like when we speak of a king, it is to be understood that the king is not alone. He has got many other followers, secretaries, ministers, soldiers, the whole state. Similarly, when we speak of Govinda, behind Govinda, with Govinda, all living entities. Now, get ready for some deep understanding, or something that we have to apply our mind to understand. Well, it's been like that all through this talk, but more so. Srila Jiva Goswami, in his Bhagavata Sandarbha, analyzes the characteristic traits of the ultimate reality, the personality of Godhead, in the following way. He states that the Paramatattva, the supreme absolute truth, is one, must be. He controls inconceivable potencies intrinsic to his nature. Intrinsic to his nature means the potencies are of him. They are part of that one, but still part. So, continuing, these potencies manifest his Swarup, his personal form, his Tadrup Vaibhav, immediate opulent expansions, the Jivas, the living entities, and the Pradhan, the sum total of material ingredients. An appropriate parallel to explain these four aspects of the Absolute Truth is their correspondence with the following four. The inner core of the sun, the surface of the sun, the rays emanating from the sun, and the light of the sun reflected on another surface far away. His Swarup, his original form, is eternal, full of knowledge and bliss, Satchidananda Vigraha. His transcendental name, abode, associates, and paraphernalia are Tadrupa Vaibhava, his immediate opulent expansions. The jivas, both the unlimited conditioned souls and the unlimited eternally liberated souls, are his infinitesimal spiritual sparks, as it were. His illusory energy, Maya, and the gross and subtle material elements created by Maya are known in their unmanifested state as pradhan. So these four manifestations are eternal, and so is the oneness of the Supreme Absolute Truth. So a question will be, Jiva Goswami raises, how can the two apparently conflicting eternal paradigms of personality and impersonality simultaneously coexist? The reply is that, how is it possible? Okay, so Jiva Goswami is going to make us understand. He says, we can't understand. It is impossible for the human intellect to accept this proposition because the intellect is limited, but within the understanding of the Achintya Shakti, the inconceivable potency of the Supreme Lord, such apparent contradictions are easily harmonized. If we accept that the Supreme Lord is in a different category altogether to us, and he can make things possible, Durgata Ghata Kattvam, Hiachintyatvam. He makes that which is impossible possible. That is his inconceivable potency. Then we can understand this. And if we don't accept that he has inconceivable potency, then what's the meaning of his being God anyway, if he can't do whatever he likes? Some quotes from Brahma Samhita to substantiate the oneness and the non-oneness of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Govinda, who is the original person who Brahma states he worships. Ekopya saurachiyatung jagadanda koting yajchaktirasti jagadanda chayayadantaha andantarasta paramanu chayantarastam govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. Even though he's one, by one of his plenary portions, he enters into the existence of every universe and every particle of the atoms. That means he's one, but he expands into as Garbhadakshay Vishnu and sustains the whole universe. He enters into every atom and sustains the universe from within, and thus unlimitedly manifests his infinite energy all over the material creation. Advaitam achyutam anadim ananta rupam adyang purana purushang navayovanam cha vedeshu durlabham adurlabham atma bhaktau govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. I worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Govinda, Krishna, who is the original person, absolute, infallible, without beginning. Although Advaita, not divided, he is expanded also into unlimited forms, Ananta Rupa. But he is still the same original, the oldest, and the person always appearing as a fresh new youth. Such eternal, blissful, all-knowing forms of the Lord are usually not understood, even by the best Vedic scholars, but they are always manifest to the pure, unalloyed devotees. Ramadi murtishu kalani amena tishtan nanavataram akarod bhuvaneshu kintu Krishna swayam samabhavat paramah pumanyo Govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. I worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Govinda, Krishna, who is always, so he's the Adi Purusha, the original form, but he's also eternally situated in various forms, such as Rama, Nrsimha, and many other, what we can call sub-incarnations as well, but who is the original personality of Godhead known as Krishna, and who himself personally comes. Thank you, Krishna, for personally coming. We're so grateful to that Krishna who is very, very kindly comes to this world and very kindly agrees to appear even on the tongue of such a wretched person as myself, that I may also link up with him by the process of bhakti yoga. He's certainly unique in being so merciful, and in that way he's the one most merciful, but he's not one because he spreads his mercy through so many great devotees, and we're all in this modern age indebted at the lotus feet of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who is his, Krishna's divine grace, who has come among us. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Dante nithaya chunakang padaya nipatya kritvacha kakushatameta bravimi he sadhava sakala eva vihaya durang gauranga chandra charane